And the fun keeps going, guys. So now we're going to move on to another idea. I mean, we've talked about Skrulls. I mean, God knows, that was just the tip of the iceberg for what we were talking about with the Skrulls. But now we're going to... I think we all agreed on talking about the Inhumans. What if the Inhumans were in one of the Fantastic Four movies?
Yeah, the Inhumans. I think they are a beloved group of powerful characters that, from Black Bolt to Medusa to Crystal to Gorgon to Trigon, all of them. My favorite, of course, is, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, yours favorite is Karnak, right?
Karnak. Yeah, there we go. I love Karnak.
So yeah, how do you think they should introduce the Inhumans in a Fantastic Four movie?
I would hate to rip off the cartoon a little bit, but I think it probably would have the best introduction. Let's build this up. Let's say, this wound up being a third movie, and Johnny hadn't really gotten over finding out that Elijah was a Skrull, so he happens to wind up taking knives for Medusa when she was with the Frightful Four.
Okay.
And just kind of, lead off from there, and finding out it's like, holy shit, there's this entire city of superpowered people.
Yeah, I'd take that. I mean, take a little bit from the animated series. Yeah, Medusa was part of the Frightful Four. That'd be kind of interesting. Because they made it as if she lost her memory, so she didn't know what she really was. So yeah, that'd be kind of interesting.
And so you could eventually backtrack it to that was sort of if Maximus was the bad guy, he took her memory and went out and hired these guys to run around with her and make sure she didn't remember who she was or something like that.
Dan, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking, if you're going to do the Skrull invasion, obviously they're from another planet, so you're going to have stuff going on in space, most likely. And the Inhumans are kind of... do they live up in space? Am I correct when I...
They were the Skrull. They were humans that were experimented on by the Creed, actually.
Okay.
And then they lived in a place called Attalian, and then they moved to the dark side of the moon, I think, something like that, if I remember correctly. But they're pretty much human, but they're not. That's why they're called Inhumans.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if they lived in space, because I'm not too familiar with the characters. I'm not really familiar with Fantastic Four much in general, but I know I have a general knowledge. But so if you're going to do the Skrull invasion, you have stuff going on in space. I think the Inhumans, they have almost godlike powers, if I remember correctly. So if you have the Skrull invasion going on, and you could somehow at the end of the movie, with the Skrull invasion, cut to the Inhumans watching the battle in space, and then being there's people like us or something, like the Fantastic Four, because they have powers too. Maybe they were superpowered beings and they didn't know that there was anyone else like them out there, and they see the Fantastic Four with powers, kind of like them, running around fighting this evil, and they say, oh, there's people like us, we can relate to these people, we can try to contact them, and maybe that's the way in which the Inhumans contact the Fantastic Four, by trying to relate to them because they're like them.
Okay.
I'm just going to throw in my idea for bringing in the Inhumans. I was thinking, kind of building up on what, Tanaka-kan over here was saying, but I was thinking instead of Medusa, how about Crystal, since that was Johnny's other love interest, how about this? Maximus takes over, Attalian, and, he kidnaps and seals away Black Bolt somewhere. He hides him away, and Crystal manages to get off Attalian, and she gets out of Attalian, and she learns about the Fantastic Four and thinks they can help her overthrow Maximus. And while this is going on, she ends up falling in love with Johnny, who is like Takahan would say is like, I would say actually at the end of like the whole scroll thing we were talking about, how about like Lyja dying at the hands of like Super Skrull or something, like sacrificing herself to stop the Skrull invasion.
That'll be a way to go with it.
So I would actually have Crystal the new love interest for Johnny, and also then bring in Karnak, Triton, and Gorgon and Medusa. Look under, they have to follow Maximus's orders, and they go out looking for Crystal, and they have to fight the Fantastic Four while they're at it. And then Crystal like convinces the Inhumans and Fantastic Four like, we have a common enemy. It's Maximus.
Are we leaving out Lockjaw too?
Oh God, no! I want Lockjaw.
Shoot! Got to have him.
Yeah.
I'm just saying because you can so easily put him in the story. I mean, he's just a big bulldog, so there's no question you can't have him not in it. And besides, his powers are very useful. He's a teleporter, so he can go anywhere he wants.
Yeah. What else was I was gonna say? Like, for me, yeah, I would have that whole thing like the Inhumans and the Fantastic Four fighting, and then lead up to Maximus being the main villain of, if you're gonna go down that road for the villains. I mean, not for the movie. For the movie. And then also I'd like to add more in with Doom, like he was Maximus. Like Reed asks him, like, why are you doing this? And Maximus mentions that he was working for someone, and Reed asks him, like, who were you working for? And Maximus would reply saying, you know his name, and he's coming back.
Oh, okay. Build up once more to Doom.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like that. Costume-wise, are we going to put the Inhumans, we want the Inhumans in costumes? In their traditional costumes? I mean, like Black Bolt. We want him in his traditional costume, or is they gonna, or could we see them design something new for them to make them look more, I don't know. Just for me, I would say keep their traditional costumes. I mean, that's just me. You don't really mess with Black Bolt's costume to me. That's iconic. That's an iconic look, fam.
I actually have a funny idea for Black Bolt, if you want, because I want his original costume in the movie too. But I actually thought of a funny scene in the movie where Black Bolt's wandering around, like have a random scene at the near end of the movie, like Black Bolt's wandering around Manhattan, and he comes across Gene Simmons. And for those who don't know, Gene Simmons, the bass guitar player for Kiss, Black Bolt was the idea for his costume in the band. He was Black Bolt's costume was what he loosely based his costume off of. And I thought it'd be funny, like he meets Black Bolt and he turns to see Black Bolt and he's like, awesome costume.
Knowing that he can't talk.
Yeah, and Black Bolt would just turn his head and just he would just turn his head like, huh?
That's interesting.
Yeah. For a costume for Maximus, I was thinking maybe like his new costume, like the robes. That's just my general idea. But yeah, I'd actually try to stay true, or try the best to stay true to the original Inhumans costumes.
I like, with Karnak, I would go with his more up to date look now, because I don't really like his classic look. I like his up to date look now, where he has like all these tribal marks on his face and things like that. So I'm like, okay, I could take that one more than his goofy looking green helmet that he wears. His classic look. But Crystal's, she could stay with that yellow and black. I don't mind.
Also as an added bonus, how about like during the whole second movie, mention that Sue's pregnant and have Crystal fill in for her.
Okay.
Like have the third movie like Sue is like she's midterm, like she's about to give birth to Franklin, and have Crystal as the member on the team filling in for her throughout the third movie.
Right.
Anyone else got any added ideas?
I have an idea for the costumes.
Okay.
If you want to do the classic costumes, I feel like someone explained this to me. Like, all right, so the Inhumans were experimented upon by humans, and by the humans, and they got these superpowers, correct?
They were experimented on by the Kree.
Okay, so the Kree. Okay.
The enemies of the Skrulls.
Okay, so, and they kind of formed this group, and they live in Attalian, and they just wear these costumes just because they're in a superhero book, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. It's like they're a society unto themselves, so they can do whatever they want.
Okay, so I'm thinking I'm just going to base it off my idea that I said before for the sake of whatever, because it makes sense. So, with what I'm thinking, so if they see the Fantastic Four in space, like I said before, and they contact them, and they won't be friends with them like through the whole movie, because obviously they are adversaries of the Fantastic Four at one point. So they can contact them and then see, when they get to Earth or whatever, or they contact the Fantastic Four through some means, bring them to Attalian, going to the Baxter Building, whatever. So they contact them and they see that these people with powers, they see, they wear costumes. So they make costumes for themselves. And then they make their own group, and then somehow in the later of the movie they come into conflict with the Fantastic Four.
Oh, not bad.
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Because I can't picture like these experimented people just being like, I must wear a costume because I have powers. So I picture them like if they learn by example, because they're going to be kind of confused. Just,
Yeah, I see.
Like
I get it. Like they're trying to relate to the Fantastic Four.
Right, because they're just seeing because in this universe I see, I forgot what I was going to say. You see, these people, in this universe, if the Fantastic Four and the Inhumans are the only people that have superpowers, and the Inhumans are just left off on their own, just refugees with superpowers, and they don't know what the hell to do with themselves, and they see these people fighting evil, they inspire them, to be like them and do something with their powers that they have. So they see them, they're like, they have costumes, this is what they do, and they kind of form a group around, basically trying to be the Fantastic Four, but then they kind of stray from their ideals and stuff, and if that Fantastic Four eventually have to combat them because they're doing things that they don't agree with.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah, that
is a good idea.
I like that.
That is a good idea, Dan.
Thanks.
That would be the best explanation to have why they're wearing all costumes. That'd be also be a cool way to tie in the whole Gene Simmons idea. I'm sorry I had to throw it back because it was just be so damn funny to see.
Yeah, you could have Black Bolt go into Johnny's room or whatever, see a Kiss poster, and be like, lightning bolts. I like that.
Alright, guys. Next part.